All right, it's starting to go live. Unmute. All right, thank you, everyone. Sorry about that. Uh, Hopefully, you can see my screen. And we're going to have a repeat of last week because, I think somebody, hops on and decides to bully me about just trying to present what I can see. I think let's do it again. And we don't have Clint here. Maybe he'll show up in a bit, but he asked for more examples. And I thought that was a fair request. So I went and got more examples. So that's what we intend to do today. So, with that, let's go through our boilerplate. Clint's not here to talk about it, but what he did was a core update analysis. Now that we finally have a start and end date, he went on his show and did a very in-depth core update analysis. So if you are looking for some, quick feedback on what Clint saw the update being about, you should check out his show this week. So he did a really good job at it. I was quite impressed. I'm also going to reference it from mine that will come out probably this week. And so if you want to find his show, you just go to YouTube, you search for SEO this week, and it'll pop right up. But that brings us to Dre DeVera's show. Dre, what can people expect to find?
What's up, IMG family? Hey guys, this week I have Rand Fishkin coming on as a special guest, and I'm doing something special this year coming around. I want to start giving away free subscriptions to like tools, courses, and communities and stuff like that, just to help out the SEO community. So be sure to say hi in the chats. Just put in "I love SEO," and you will be randomly picked for next week.
That is awesome. And just tell everyone, how did you land Rand Fishkin is a guest on your show? How does one do that?
Okay. So I reached out on Twitter. Nothing. Reached out on LinkedIn. Nothing. I went in and grabbed my book. I have his book, Lost and Founder. Did a quick video, 30 seconds. Emailed it to him. And I got a response. I'm like, hey, Red, I met you about 2 years ago. You signed my book. I would love to have you as a guest on my new show, the SEO video show. And I got a response within, I think, a couple hours.
Well, that's an important lesson for how to network with influencers. I think that's amazing. At some point, we should probably have you on to talk about how to network with influencers because you seem to be doing an amazing job at that.
Oh
Who
yeah.
who else do you have coming up?
I got Hamlet Bautista, Dwayne Forster. I got the CEO of Bright Edge, Jim Yu, coming on, and a bunch of other influencers like Michael King, and all ready to go. I mean, I'm booked until April of this year, and I want to get more people on there, but it's like there's only 4 weeks in a month, so I could get 4 guests on there. And I like the live feel. I love it when the crowd interacts and can ask questions that they always ask to anyone that they've always wanted to ask questions to.
Now you only started this like less than a year ago. It was a mastermind idea, and now you're like networking and hobnobbing with the biggest names in the industry. I mean, that's got
Yeah.
to feel good.
Oh no, it is. I mean, it was something that I've always wanted to do, and it did come out of Mastermind, out of IMG, and it was one of those things where it's like, I remember like it was either do this one project for work or do this project, and then Kyle was like, I think you should just do the channel, and I was like, all right, let's do the channel, and then I didn't know how to live stream, like all the stuff that you see in front of me, all the sound effects that you hear and see on the show. I learned all that within back in April until about my first episode was in July. So it took me about 3 months to learn how to live stream with all the production stuff like that and get all the equipment. And by that time, by July, I launched my first show. And you can see if you watch my first episode to my episode now, there's a huge difference. But I was like, at the time I was thinking like, oh, this is cool. But I think it's nice to see progression of how the show is, the quality wise, and how the flow of things have been going.
Well, you have a very big problem because there's always going to be one person you can never have as a guest on your show. So you're going to have to get a guest host so that you can be interviewed.
I was planning on doing something creative with that. I was gonna try to interview myself somehow and like do some pre-recordings and kind of do some nodding, but like I was like, I need some time to do that because I only get a week, right? Before I can do something like that. But yeah, maybe we can get someone from IMG to interview me on my show.
Maybe if you plan it out far enough in advance, you could like have a different hairstyle and a beard and then switch back and forth between the two personas.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be cool because I would definitely want to be like two different people, and it's one of those fun things. That just being a content creator.
All right. Well, that is amazing. And again, if you want to find Dre's show, just go to YouTube and search for the SEO video show. It'll be the first result. And it's a great interview show. It talks about what people do and how they did it and insights, their big takeaways on various aspects of things.
Mm.
And there's no other show like it. So it's amazing.
One thing I found with the show was that I wanted to be a bunch of big brand SEOs, but it was hard actually getting approvals from the companies to actually get on the show to talk about their strategies. They didn't want them giving away, I guess, their SEO strategies. So I was like, that's when it kind of evolved into just getting more of the influencers in there.
Yeah. When I was an in-house SEO, it was nearly impossible for me to do anything. The answer was always no from corporate.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not surprised by that. But all right, let's switch over to Lauren. Lauren, what's coming up?
Yeah, so on Friday we have our regular SEO pro tip, and then we have our AMA on Tuesday with you, Ted. And we have so many courses and so much content right now in the community. We just launched the new conferences, so SEO Spring Training and the In Orbit Conference. We have week by week, we're dripping the content marketing formula, so matching search intent to, actually the content that you're creating and increasing conversions on your pages. And then we're getting ready to launch a double your conversion rate challenge in 30 days. And that's with Stephen Greeley. So there's a lot going on in IMG and we're having a lot of fun.
Well, that's very cool. I noticed that the AMAs with Kyle switched into the evenings Pacific time, which is terrible for me because now I can't hop in and benefit from them. But it's probably good for the world at large because now we're in, two, major time zones and it's more flexible for people. How's that going? How was it? What'd we miss?
You missed it all, Ted. We solved the internet, and
You
that was
solved
that.
SEO. It's done.
Everhart and I got it done. That's how we do. That's how we do. No, it's actually nice. Because there's still obviously plenty of people from the U.S., but then also being able to kind of hit all the other time zones that are normally neglected by IMG. Yeah, it's good. The whole thing's good. It's a good SEO chat. And it is, an AMA. It's anything you want to chat about in terms of SEO, in terms of tools, in terms of topics that are going on. We cover it all. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Very cool. So, our show, whose BERT is best? And it's kind of a weird question. What do you mean, whose BERT is best? Well, it turns out that Bing has had BERT for a long time. In fact, Bing has had BERT live since April of 2019, which is 6 months before Google did it. So it's already out there, and we have 2 examples of BERT in the wild. We can actually compare and contrast them. We can confirm some of our ideas from a second independent source. And so this was really interesting to me. And Clint said he would have liked to have seen more examples. And I thought that was a really great request, and I want to honor it. And as we all know, there is a bully on the show, and I'm not a big fan of bullies, so I think, we should just do it again. So we're going to do it again. So first, I want to put this out there, okay? Because this should be in everybody's frame of mind for how they see the world. Anybody can beat me in a debate. It's true. Anybody can change my mind. If you're a scientific person, you have to have an open mind. You have to consider evidence when it's presented to you. That's how science works. So if you want to beat me in a debate, I'll tell you how. Define things as clearly as possible. So don't be wishy-washy. Don't make it all mystical and magical. It's not a superpower that Google has. Define what it is specifically. That's fair. If you think it does X, then just tell us that you think it does X. And don't tell me, show me. Give me examples. And we're specifically talking about this BERT equals intent debate. And so specifically in that case, define intent clearly, so I'm not confused about what you mean by it. Demonstrate that BERT does that and is good at that. This is the can BERT do this test. And then demonstrate that BERT is better than other methods. Is this the best tool for the job? Because there might be more than one way to do the same thing. And then ultimately, the goal is to demonstrate that Google is using BERT in that way. And if you can do some or all of those things, you will change my mind. That is the roadmap to me saying, you are right, you have changed my mind. And it is totally possible. And I think it's totally reasonable to ask for these demonstrations when you make big, bold claims like BERT equals intent. Show me. And the other problem I have is that if you're so much smarter than me, if you're way ahead of me and I'm a clown and I don't know anything, then shouldn't this have happened by now? Shouldn't have you demonstrated all of this stuff a long time ago, and I can just point to your video or blog post that does it so well and say, hey, SEOs, go here. This is the best resource. By the time it gets onto my plate, you've already failed miserably at taking the lead on demonstrating. And I'm not the first person to talk about BERT. BERT's been out there for a long, long time. I'm probably the last person to talk about BERT because it's such old news. So I kind of feel like SEOs in general have been waiting for these simple, straightforward demonstrations of what BERT is, what it can do, and how Google appears to be using it. And does that mean I have it right? No, doesn't. Does that mean that Google can't think of other ways to use it? No, they could. But I'm just doing what hasn't been done before and probably should have. So
Ted, if I can throw in a thought here.
Sure.
One of the things that I see in a lot of different analyses of BERT or any sort of new technology that's claimed out there is, in this example, if you sit there and say, oh, I typed apple pie into Google and it showed me apple pie and apple pie knowledge graph and all that sort of stuff, therefore BERT, it got intent. And I'm like, well, that could be keyword density. That could be TF-IDF. There are examples that you can construct that show that BERT can do that, whereas keyword density, TF-IDF, or other methodologies that are known and have been used and have been patented couldn't have. So I think that's one of the problems that I also see in a lot of the analyses that are out there is everything becomes BERT when, you want to look for those examples where only BERT could do this and either it did or it didn't. You can't claim that TF-IDF or keyword density did it. And I think that's one of the failings of a lot of the broad analysis that's out there. So, you've got to show that as well. I would add that as a requirement here. Can BERT do this? Yes. Is it BERT doing this? Can it be explained by things that we know Google is doing?
And I think that's exactly right. BERT is a natural language processing AI tool. And so we ought to be able to give it a natural language processing example, one that BERT could both get right or get wrong based on its ability to sense the intent of the search. And then we should allow BERT that opportunity to get it right or wrong. And that's why I picked the examples I picked. That's why I didn't like the Jessica Alba example from last week. I didn't feel like that gave BERT the opportunity to get it right or wrong. So what we have is a contest, and I'll admit this contest is bullshit. It's mainly just examples. But whose BERT is best? We got 3 rounds, from the documentation on BERT and from playing with it, both implementations that are on university websites, running an implementation of my own with the downloaded models, working directly with Google's implementation and Bing's implementation. We're going to do the 3 things, 2 of which I see, 1 of which I don't, but people seem to claim. So question answering, passage selection, and searcher intent. So round 1, question answering. So what is the best time to send a marketing email? Straightforward question. We see in Google that they got some answers. And this is what BERT is really known for, is answering questions and highlighting the answer in the summary text. So I think this is pretty great. They didn't call it out in the featured snippet, but the top 2 organic results had it, and that's pretty cool. When I look at Bing, they also have it. They had answers highlighted in the results, but they also didn't have a featured snippet. and they didn't call out the answer until results 3 or 4. So I felt the point goes to Google because they highlighted the answer sooner in the organic results. So the next one, how big was the largest smallmouth bass ever caught? Google highlighted the word ounce. So that doesn't count as an answer. So that's a variant. So this was not a good example of question answering. Over on Bing, they called out the correct answer. They gave it a big call out. They highlighted it in the featured snippet. They also highlighted it in the organic web results. This was a good job of question answering using BERT. Scores now 1-1. So you guys get the idea of how this is going. So I said, how long does it take to walk from Urbana, Illinois to Carbondale, Illinois? And Google had this neat map widget, but they did know to highlight the time. They knew what I was asking for. How long does it take? So there's no call out in the organic web results, even though there were web results that offered to calculate the answer, but they did not BERT the organic in this case. When I did the same on Bing, no answer. So these are just keyword matches. So Google 2, Bing 1. But you get this idea, BERT is good at question answering. We can go on all day with these. We know BERT is good at these. I kind of feel that Google does a slightly better job with basic questions. So we'll just kind of leave it at that and get to the next part of the contest.
Hey, Ted, one of the things I just want to point out, when we were doing a lot of the questions, both of them tend to rely heavily on Wikipedia. So if you have a question that can be answered by a Wikipedia article, they both do, an equal job. So, I mean, it's like you have to look at questions that are answered outside of Wikipedia to see what the implementation is here. But for the broader questions, that is, they're both equivalent and very good at that.
Yeah, some of my favorite examples were cases where Bing was pulling answers from normal everyday websites, and I thought that was pretty impressive. And I have a suspicion that that might be related to what Google's trying to do with passage indexing. So passage selection, this is kind of like the question answering, except it's not about highlighting the specific answer. It's about showing a passage in the first search result that contains an answer. So it's passage selection. And we're primarily looking at that first result because from Bing and Google, that's the most relevant result. That's supposed to be the best answer spot. So how fast is a turkey? We get a passage from Google that answers the question. We get the exact same passage from the exact same website in Bing. So it looks like both their Bings did the exact same thing here, which is really kind of cool. So point goes to both. So 1-1. So what's the fastest home Wi-Fi router? In this Google result, we don't get good passage selection. It doesn't appear to have worked here. In the Bing result, if you need the absolute fastest wireless speeds and you're willing to pay for them, the X10 is the best Wi-Fi router for you. The passage they selected tried to answer the question. So in this case, we award the point to Bing. So what's the best-selling Mac monitor? This one was weird. They both came up with Amazon, but we're looking at the passage selection. Google decided to show me the best portable monitors, which isn't what I asked for. And the Bing one was showing me best monitors, but they both neglected the constraint of Mac monitors. So I thought that was interesting. So I didn't consider that a win. Or I guess I did. Point went to Bing because why did I do that? Oh, because it was showing me at least best monitors, if not the best portable ones was weird. The thing about this query is that they're all HDMI anymore, so Mac might be irrelevant. That might be why. I don't know. So that's a weird one. You could argue that Bing shouldn't get that point too. I could see it both ways. But for now, Bing got the point on that. But I wasn't done with it. I wanted to rephrase. What's the best-selling monitor for Mac? Does the phrasing of the question matter a lot? I got different results. So I got, clearly what looks like a TF IDF result for Amazon here. And, both failed the Mac intent again. And the passage selection doesn't really answer. So no point on that one. So I rephrased the question again. I'm trying to get the answer I'm after. So I'm asking the question different ways. What's the highest rated monitor for Mac? And then finally, I get some passages that attempt to answer the question. Best monitor for MacBook, the best 4K monitors for any Mac user. Finally, we have some passage selection, but I really had to rephrase the question multiple times. So I gave them both a point. So that brings us to our round 3 of searcher intent. So I asked them both, what is the instrument with 4 strings in a rock band called? Okay. So I figured this one should be kind of straightforward, and Google said it was banjos, and Bing said, it's cymbalum, the striking things. So I thought this was weird, and I said, there's no way, they have to have this info. So I went and I typed, how many strings does a bass guitar have? And so Google clearly had that data. And I asked, what instruments are usually in a rock band? And it knew bass guitar is in a rock band. But when I asked, what instrument with 4 strings, what is that in a rock band? It couldn't do it. So I thought that was interesting. And so it begs the question, is BERT good at complex questions? Because maybe that's just too hard. So another example, can a duck run faster than a turkey? And Google comes back with, can turkeys and ducks live together? So, that was really interesting. On Bing, can a duck run faster than a turkey? 5 birds you should eat. So apparently the answer is you don't have to be the fastest bird. You just have to be faster than the turkey. So this was a pretty big fail on intent. But again, I think this is a bad BERT question. I think what we're seeing here is that some questions are BERT compatible and some questions aren't. In this case, we're asking Google to look up how fast a duck is, look up how fast a turkey is, and tell us which is faster. And BERT can't do that. BERT can only tell you if a document they've processed answers that question. And if nobody made a web page about how much faster ducks are than turkeys, there's nothing for them to work with. So even though you can look up their speeds independently and, Microsoft and Google can answer them independently, you can't ask Google to compare them. That's not a compatible BERT question. So I asked an information question. What is a pave bracelet? It's a technical term. Product buyers understand what a pave bracelet, but me being a novice retailer, I have no clue what pave means. So I asked Google, and Google just tried to sell me pave bracelets and told me where to go buy pave bracelets. Whereas Bing actually put a definition on the page. They understood what I was asking. So point goes to Bing for understanding that when I asked what is a pave bracelet, that I wanted a definition. So this one, I'm going to apologize. I'm not going to read this one out loud because this one is horrible. And I am so shocked that Google got this wrong. So I asked a question, do pink socks support cancer? And they're aware. Custom pink socks are an easy way to show off support for breast cancer awareness. So they have the information. Down below, when I switched the question, what cause do pink socks support? It got really bad. I can't believe Google put that text there. And so I see people cracking up because you can't, Google misunderstood the intent. Like there's the cause of, what causes migraine headaches, and then there's cause, what charitable causes do you support? If they understood my intent, they wouldn't have done this. So I don't think this technology is reading and understanding intent, or if it is, I don't think it's very good at it. When I went over to Bing and asked what cause do pink socks support, I get what I feel is a TF-IDF answer. So I don't think BERT is doing a better job at Bing here. But that TF-IDF answer knew that I wanted pages about socks that support causes, and they got me what I wanted. So even though it wasn't BERT, in terms of intent, I feel they get the point because Google messed it up so bad. It boggles my mind how bad that example was. So overall, I felt that Bing won this contest. There's one point in there I feel is really honestly debatable. So it might be 6-4 instead of 7-4. I do feel that Google's BERT is a little better at answering very simple questions. How fast is a duck? That's something at least. And I still feel my mind is not changed after spending another few days typing in, edge questions where Google could get the intent right or could get the intent wrong based on how they interpret the query. I just think BERT sucks at intent. You're going to have to show me BERT doing a good job to convince me otherwise. I just don't believe that's what it's built for. There's nothing in the documentation saying that that's what it's all about. So I think the burden of proof is on the people saying that BERT is intent to kind of demonstrate it. And one more note, upon doing all of this searching, I was pretty surprised at some of the differences I saw between Bing and Google. And this isn't BERT related, but when I would search, I would notice that Bing has a lot more documents that they're aware of for each keyword. So for purple frisbee, Bing knew about 54 million, but Google only knows about 18.6 million documents. And when you go all the way to the end, Bing is showing, 619 results for Purple Frisbee, where Google is capping it off at 343. This is suggesting to me that Bing's supplemental index is 3 times larger than Google's, and Bing's primary index is about twice as large as Google. And so Bing had BERT, 6 months earlier than Google, and they're deploying it on a much larger data set than Google is currently offering, which I think is remarkable. And it also made me think that if you're looking for something that's very obscure, or if you're doing research and trying to create an authoritative list, we might actually be at a point where Bing is a better tool for those kinds of jobs than Google. And I thought that was pretty shocking. So, Kyle, I saw you, saw the gears turning. What do you think about all this?
The only thing I'm thinking is it just seems like the question has to be clearly answered somewhere. Google is not making up an answer, right? Like it has its database and it has to find that within its database somewhere. So if the question isn't properly answered, it's not going to be able to come up with an answer for you. It seems that there are no pages on duck v turkey races.
Yes.
And as a result, there's just no good answer. So it's not necessarily that it's doing a bad job. It just simply doesn't have access to the information. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I totally agree. I think BERT is excellent at question answering when there's content that it has access to find those answers. I think that's something that BERT does really well. It's when people say that BERT is, search intent, and then they go on to define search intent as being informational, transactional, and all those various labels. I'm not certain that's something that BERT does. I don't find any support for that. So the question answering, I'm certain BERT does question answering. I think BERT does question answering rather well. What do you think, Lee?
Well, I had a blast watching this episode being created because one of my favorite things to personally smash is the idea that Google is sort of this all-knowing, hyper-advanced ball of energy that can answer any question anytime. When all the testing, all the analysis suggests it's a fairly simple algorithm that operates off of a bunch of fairly simple rules, or as Kyle likes to say, it's math. So I love this here because it does show there are limitations to it, and the idea, for example, with the ducks and turkeys, that there's probably a website that answers the duck speed. There is one that answers the turkey speed, but Google's not going out, or Bing's not going out either, and grabbing that information from 2 different sources, compiling it and coming back with an answer. If it doesn't exist on a single source that's easily understood, both of them fail. So intent does seem like a far stretch at the current iteration of the technology.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand that not all questions are BERT compatible. Like, you have to understand that and be able to frame your questions and answers correctly if you want to optimize for BERT in some way. And so definitely you need to test questions in search to find out if they are BERT compatible questions. Yeah, very true.
Let's also see if we can create a BERT. Let's see if we can create a question that doesn't exist, and see if Google can actually then suss it out. So ask it in a slightly different way and see if you get the result.
Well, I think people are already testing that. Am I correct in that, Lee?
There are some. We've got. We're getting ready to launch a series of BERT style questions to see how far on a single page you can push it. I mean, it's like, Kyle Roof, lives in Thailand. He is a cat juggler. What is Kyle Roof's profession? To see if it can, pull the he is a cat juggler and connect it to the Kyle Roof in the previous sentence. And what happens if we, put that information in different paragraphs further apart on a page? Sort of what are the limits of understanding, the components in a particular topic. So we've got some of those. I'm sure that other people watching your last show and this show will come up with some great tests of their own of this, because we need to know. Because I was actually asked by somebody today, more or less, the crux of their question was, how do you, me, optimize for BERT? And I'm like, well, what the hell does that even mean at this stage of BERT development? I didn't know how to answer it.
Yeah. So, I'm open to BERT being able to do intent. I just, from what I see by playing with it, I just don't think it's very good at it. I know a lot of people are going to try to warp what I'm saying to being that Google doesn't use intent, and I don't think that's true at all. I think Google does look for intent. I just don't think that BERT is the tool they use to do it. It doesn't seem like it does it, and in many cases, it doesn't seem like intent is an NLP thing on their side. It seems a lot more basic. They're looking for question words, or keywords that tell the intent. Define this, or how many, or where can I, or what is. There are many clues that don't have to be AI, and all they need is just a decent list that catches most of them, and they can map them to various apps. So, is BERT doing that instead of just a simple mapping? I'm not so certain.
So, Ted, one of the things you said, you've played with the BERT algorithm, personally in some of the iterations there. One of the things that you have taught me and others over time is, every piece of information that Google has to calculate has a cost multiplied by, trillions of pages. So if Google or Bing wanted to use BERT to extract as many question answers, for example, out of every web page, what would the calculation cost be? Is it feasible at the current stage of the algorithm to even do that?
I don't think it would be a very productive use of time and resources. It made sense that they used websites like Wikipedia because they felt it was fairly trustworthy, and there's an awful lot of answers in Wikipedia, factual answers. And so Wikipedia was a great one because if you need to know the melting point for copper, that's on a Wikipedia page. So it can answer all those kinds of simple questions. It's another problem altogether to say that means BERT is running against all the sentences on your web pages. And we do see some signs of that happening. We see a lot more of it in Bing than we do in Google. And it makes me wonder if passage indexing is maybe Google's rolling out of BERT on primary index pages. So if you get through the gauntlet enough to get into the primary index, maybe you get queued up for BERT processing. I don't know. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. But it looks like Bing is ahead of the curve. So if that is what it is, then maybe you can see what the future is going to look like by testing some things out on Bing. But the truth is, we just don't know. Until Google deploys, we have no idea. So let's see if there are any questions. Let's see, we got a bunch in chat here. All right, so All right, a lot of comments on the worst example I've ever seen of managing intent. So a lot of WTFs. And I agree, folks. It was shocking. I'm sorry. I apologize. I couldn't even bring myself to read it. But the thing is this whole thing, like the score, the whole thing was subjective as hell. It is a bullshit comparison because the examples are everything. But I just wanted to give more examples on why I don't think intent is what BERT is all about. It's not what it does best. And that I think BERT does some amazing things that just aren't intent, and that I'm really open to being proven wrong. I just want you to demonstrate it to us in a simple, straightforward way. And I think that's totally reasonable. And if you can demonstrate it in a very reasonable, straightforward way, I'd love to have you on the show. So that's not out of the question. Just show us. Don't tell us, show us. And
Well,
I think
Ted,
that's fair.
you gave a methodology here. One of the things that's clear, because I've played with this on both Google and Bing, the exact phrasing of the question matters in terms of the quality of the response. Whereas as a human being, I'm like, those are equivalent questions. From an algorithmic perspective, they're not, because they give you way different answers, some horrible. You almost have to ask it in exactly the right way to get the answer that you want, which is not an indicator that the AI is currently at a high level of understanding. And anybody that wants to do that can ask any sort of questions on either of them and just keep changing the question a little bit and see how the answer changes and see what they think about the quality of the answer. And they can come up with their own scoring system for saying, is this a good answer, a bad answer? Is Bing better than Google, or any of them answering what I'm talking about here? So I applaud you for demonstrating the methodology.
And the best question examples, I think, are the ones where Google has a chance to get the intent of what you're doing right, and it also has a chance to get the intent of what you're doing wrong. So, get understanding the meaning of causes, understanding, or misunderstanding the meaning of boxing matches, where it's putting matches into boxes versus punching people in the face. Those types of opportunities where the question can be specific to which you mean, but Google has the ability to get it right or wrong. Those are the best intent tests I think there are. And it just looks like it's not an intent system. That's not what it is.
No, don't forget your ducks and turkeys. The runs faster. It's like Google and Bing are like, let's just throw that out and talk recipes here. It's, it's ignore the part of the questions we don't want to deal with. So
Yeah, I really like the idea that you don't have to be the fastest bird. You just got to be faster than the turkey. But with that, I want to thank everyone for joining the show, and we'll talk to you next week. Hopefully, I'll have some insights on the core update by then that I can share, and we'll see you then. Thank you, everyone.